We've got a major storm moving up the East Coast, straddling the Carolinas, hitting South Carolina very hard from Charleston to Myrtle Beach. Tornadoes, even a pretty impressive tidal surge in Charleston today. And of course, we're preparing for high winds, heavy rains, and depending on the timing of this low when it goes by, coastal flooding. So we're going to be talking about that in the week ahead and probably a few other things along the way because we always manage to find things to talk about right here on this Sunday night Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast on the 17th of December. A week from today is Christmas Eve, and the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast is brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. I'm going to put the link at the top of the chat board and pin it there. Tempest is an affiliate of the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. If you decide to make a purchase, and there's still time before Christmas, well, use the coupon code. The coupon code will, which is I want a weather station. If you use it, you will get
10% off. Wow.
Yep, 10% off. And here we are on this Sunday night. This weather system, Joe, is
loaded for bear.
Well, yeah, I think so. And a particular concern to me is the fact that this is going to be close with regards to coastal flooding, and there's probably going to be some, certainly. The tides are tomorrow morning, but I think most of the high tide times are between 9 and noon. And if the winds haven't shifted to the northwest, that could cause a problem for Long Island high tides. Jersey might thread the needle a bit better. Particularly South Jersey, but areas to the north and in southern New England and southeastern New England, if they've still got a south wind at 10 or 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, that's not going to be good.
No, it's not. The winds are going to be early tomorrow, southeast, and then they'll switch over to a more westerly component in the afternoon. But as you just said, if the high tide cycle is indeed in the morning, when those winds are still coming from the south and southeast, that could mean big, big trouble for places along the south shore of Long Island. You're right, threading the needle along the Jersey shore, where the switch in the wind direction will be in the process of taking place. Hopefully, they won't have to deal with any more misery. But again, the folks who live along the south and southeastern sections of Long Island, well, there is something to be concerned about tomorrow.
One of the I just had a thought now, and I was going to drop it. There was an upside to all of this. Well, there is one upside for sure, although it's maybe done a little bit overdone. Was the fact that the rains in South and North Carolina were particularly impressive. In fact, the rainfall amounts in eastern North Carolina during this afternoon were 6 inches plus in a lot of areas. A lot of that fell in 1 or 2 hours' time. Myrtle Beach got hit with some pretty wicked thunderstorms, and I actually have a radar loop, and Joe's going to take us around on the radars in a moment. But I backed this up 6 hours on the loop from UCAR, and you'll see. Now we're at 2249. So here's at the very beginning. Look at all that heavy rain, and then you see those snaky red lines straddling right along the North Carolina coast. And of course, all of this was just training basically over the same area for hours. So now at least the back edge has moved further north, and you also see the heavier rains that went into North Carolina. In inland areas, a lot of the inland areas were so bone dry from the summertime. It's a little uneven, but yet you're still getting these bands that are coming in from off the ocean. The low itself, Joe, is still a bit to the south of all of this. So it's just kind of straddling the coastline all the way up, which you don't see very often for storms to do that.
Right. It's been a while since we've had something like this to contend with. You may remember last Sunday we had a threat of gusty winds and rain, but that was a whole different type of animal. That was more of a frontal line than anything else. This is truly a storm system, which, Joe, we've been talking about this for the last few days. I mean, even at one point, one or two of our members on the chat board uh, said it bore somewhat of a resemblance to the Great Storm of March of 1993, which was a superstorm with lots of snow, but also a lot of severe weather accompanying it. Yeah, this is a full-fledged system that, again, packs a lot of punch to it, really a wallop, and it's coming straight up toward us. And it looks like here in the tri-state New York area that the worst of it is going to be in the after midnight hours. Interestingly, we've been saying that for a number of days now. Seemingly, the timing is not going to change or alter any from what we were thinking, let's say, back on Wednesday or Thursday. This looks like a system that's going to hit us hard late tonight and into the first part of the day on Monday. And it also looks like that area down in the Carolinas, if you look at that and look at the area of FGen or Omega or atmospheric energy, that lines up fairly well. And that area of atmospheric energy is going to be whizzing right through here, probably after 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And so if you're wondering if we're going to see any convective activity or thunderstorm activity, there's a fair chance, I think, that that is going to happen. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center, and we'll see that in a few moments as well, has now raised the odds and have put us not in just in general thunderstorm activity, but a marginal risk of severe weather. And I don't remember the last time I saw that in the middle of December in this part of the country, but that is what we're looking at squarely in the eye over the next 6 to 12 hours.
All right, so you can show get ready to show the FGen maps and the radar, and I'm just going to start things off with a slew of watches and warnings, and they're up and down the eastern seaboard here. There's a whole lot of them. But before we get to that, I just want to give a big hello to everybody on the chat board on this Sunday night. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And for those of you who aren't on the chat board but are watching tonight and joining us because of the nasty weather in the along the East Coast, big hugs and big hello to you. I hope you like what you see. If you do like the show, hit the like button. We always like to get over 100 likes. That's sort of our goal every night, to try to get to 100 likes. So if you like the show, hit the like button and take us there. And of course, if you do like the show, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Take us over 14,000 subscribers. And make sure you turn your notifications on, because we are here Sunday through Thursdays at 7:35 and the occasional Friday and Saturday when there is a big storm around. And meanwhile, up and down, we've got pretty much everything up. Even we have some snow advisories and warnings up, which we'll talk about too. In starting from Maine, we've got wind advisories across the whole state with high wind warnings in down east Maine. Flood watches are up as well from inland Maine across New Hampshire, Vermont, much of the eastern half of New York, as well as down in southern New York, the Catskills, the Hudson Valley, to New York City, down through New Jersey, the eastern half of Pennsylvania, all under flood watches, as is eastern Maryland, the Delmarva Peninsula, eastern Virginia, and easternmost North Carolina. We've got what's left of a tornado watch in eastern North Carolina that still has another hour and 17 minutes to go. It's 7:43 p.m. Eastern Time at the moment, along with numerous flood advisories, wind advisories in the mountains. We've got wind advisories up in North and South Carolina, as well as even parts of southeast Georgia and northeast Florida. Winter storm warnings are up for portions of, and this is all going to be elevated areas, of course, in southwestern Pennsylvania. It's sort of a skinny band here, sort of revealing where the spine of the Appalachians is, into West Virginia, where some areas are going to wind up with half a foot or more, probably in areas above 3,000 feet. And then we've got winter weather advisories further south into western Virginia, eastern Kentucky, southeast Ohio, also up in northwest West Pennsylvania and southwest New York for later tomorrow night. And then we've got a few counties in western North Carolina, not quite to me, but close. where we've got winter weather advisories as well. Snow elevations probably above 3,000 feet. And over the rest of the country, it's actually relatively quiet. A few wind advisories up in parts of Iowa and in North Dakota, fog issues out in the west with a lot of dense fog advisories there. And as we switch over to the satellite, very impressive today, all day long, watching these satellite loops with the amount of moisture. I mean, this thing, Joe, really had the subtropical jet feeding into the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, it really just boned up with a ton of tropical moisture, and all of that now lifting northward. And if you look up in the western lakes, you can see there's an upper trough there, and the two systems aloft, the one in the western lakes and the one in the southern stream, have sort of phased a bit, and that's lifting all that energy up straight up the coast. And there's the heaviest rains are yet to come.
Yeah, and I think what we have often said with tropical systems, tropical cyclones that have an unusually rapid forward speed, this has a very rapid forward speed. And that is going to be one of the reasons why this thing can be rather destructive in the overnight hours, because it literally is going to zoom through here like a 40-ton Mack truck, meteorological Mack truck, if you will. And as it does, it will produce, again, very strong winds. And again, also the threat of some torrential or very heavy rainfall and embedded thunderstorm, convective activity as well, which we're seeing right now. Well, we just saw, actually, Joe brought up the radar down over the Carolinas, and that lines up fairly well, as I said, with the FGen, or the area of atmospheric energy. I do want to also mention one other thing, and that is that as bad as it will be tonight and probably into tomorrow as well, as bad as this all is, the good thing, if you want to look for a good side of it, is that once we kick this out of here, and we probably will not get rid of it completely until later Tuesday or Tuesday night, in terms of clouds, in terms of residual moisture, in terms of leftover wind. Once it does fully move on out, we've got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and of course next Sunday, which is Christmas Eve, which look from this vantage point, Joe, like we're going to have nothing but fair skies and sunshine and seasonable temperatures. So it looks like we're going to have a nice stretch of or protracted spell of dry, fine weather for last-minute holiday shoppers and also for travelers later on in the weekend to the upcoming holiday weekend next weekend. In fact, next weekend looks like, for the first time in the last 3 or 4 weekends, we're not going to split things down the middle. It's not just going to be a nice Saturday. I think also next Sunday, which is Christmas Eve, it's also going to be very nice as well. And I'll even go so far as to say that Monday, a week from Monday, tomorrow, Christmas Day, looks very nice as well. So what we're dealing with here is a big payoff, or big payment. We're going to have to make payment, and it's going to be quite a large bill tonight into tomorrow, in terms of wind, in terms of rain, in terms of possible flooding, in terms of possible power outages. We'll deal with all of these headaches now, so that we will have, in the end, the middle and latter part of this week, and also into next weekend, holiday weekend, some very, very nice, tranquil, quiet weather.
So I've got the wide radar view. I'll put it up here first, and then Joe's going to take us on a whole tour of radars up and down the eastern seaboard. But there it is, and you see how extensive the rains are now. They've actually pushed up into Maine, and also back as far west as Pennsylvania, western Pennsylvania, and then there's an arm that still extends down to the Georgia-Carolina state line. And of course, the area that we're focusing on with great interest is the area of dark greens and yellows that are now just about reaching the Pennsylvania state line and almost into southern New Jersey and points southward. But Mr. Rayo, as I said, is going to take us on a local radar tour and talk about the FGen, which is important. So it's all yours, Mr. Rayo. Take it away.
Okay, Joe, let's start off with our Upton or New York City radar. Of course, Upton is not at New York, it's out in eastern Long Island. But you can see that over time, this radar is rapidly filling in now, or filling up. We actually had
Hold on,
during
Joe.
the
Joe, unshare and reshare again, please.
okay.
I love how it depicts to do this on the busiest day.
Of course, technology. Joe, I've said this
Nope,
before, and I get
there
my
it goes again. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can fix it from here. Uh,
Mrs. Rayo gets very upset. We spent all this money on those two stupid contraptions, otherwise known as iPhones. And I said to her, I said, I guarantee you that when you need these things the most, when you're in the dire need of either making a call or taking a picture with these stupid things or whatever, they're going to fail. And more often than not, at least for me, they have.
well,
These,
I
the
fixed it.
world
I fixed it.
of, all right. Well, the world of technology. Can you see it?
Yes, it's all up there. So go
All
ahead.
right. Good. All right. Oh, let's do this fast before we
I just
suddenly have.
got out of tech hell for 4 days, so I'm happy. So go on
I
and
understand.
go.
See, you've been through tech hell, and now we've had this little problem or whatever. Anyway, as I was saying before, I was so rudely interrupted by technology. You're seeing the radar from New York City, from Upton, eastern Long Island, and you can see how it's filling in. As I was saying just a few moments ago, for a good part of the afternoon, we actually didn't have very much happening. We actually had periods when no rain was falling, and we were very happy about that. I had a chance to take my dog out a couple of times without needing the umbrella, but now it looks like we're going to need the umbrella for the coming hours. As you can see, this area of rainfall now filling in, moving up from the south. This is the system that we're watching. The areas of dark green are probably steady, light to maybe moderate rainfall. Again, moving up from the south. Let's check out somewhere else. Let's go to Philadelphia and see what they have. Actually, this is Wrightstown, New Jersey. And you can see that we now are looking at areas of yellow and even some flashes of orange. So moderate to even heavy activity, especially here, pushing into Amish country, southeastern Pennsylvania, and also into portions of extreme southern New Jersey. And again, all of this moving from south to north. This is the stuff that we're going to be dealing with all through the overnight hours. The heaviest stuff will be coming our way probably in the after midnight hours. Let's just go just a little ways opposite to Boston and show you that to the north and east, to our north and east, some of these heavy cells of precipitation are also hitting portions of central and eastern Massachusetts, Cape Cod, and the islands. So even if you try to escape and go north, they're getting wet over there. Albany, well, they've got some significant rains moving, especially even to the north of Albany, on up toward Glens Falls and Saratoga Springs. And they too will be dealing with more wetness than whiteness up there. Take a look at this area of moderate rain that is moving across the Berkshires of western Massachusetts right here. There you go, again on that same south to north trajectory. Let's go further south now and track what's going on. Oh, let's take a look at Washington, D.C., Sterling, Virginia. And you can see that there's almost like an arm of precipitation here that's moving north and then northwest across Washington, Baltimore, on up into western sections of Maryland, over toward Hagerstown. And again, some really heavy rain across northern sections of Virginia. And that, again, is just an earmark of what's going to be coming our way overnight tonight. Go down further south to Raleigh. We actually did get a glimpse of this on with Joe at the start of the show, and you could see this area. Look at all of this moderate to heavy rain heading northward and forming now. And then this is a band here with embedded orange and red. And right down here near the coastal plain, we have been picking up thunderstorm activity, and that too, again, moving on that same south to north trajectory. Let's go further south to Charleston, South Carolina. And we mentioned about the tidal situation down there. And right now, as far as South Carolina is concerned, it looks like the worst of it is behind them now, although they still have some lingering bands of rain, which will now be coming on down. They're on the other side of this storm system, so you can see how the precipitation is coming down from the north to northwest to southeast. The main storm track or the main storm area is right about here in the coastline of South Carolina. And again, what you're seeing here is the back edge of this. Now, all through the weekend, folks down in Florida have been getting drenched. But if we look now at Melbourne radar in central Florida, finally, they are drying out. They're drying out in Melbourne. They are drying out up in Tallahassee. So they have had their fair share down in the Sunshine State, Jacksonville. So, and the folks in Florida are the ones who are sending us this mayhem. This is their present to us. So they said, well, we're done with it now. Now it's your ball, so to speak. And that's what we're going to be dealing with during the overnight hours tonight and into the day on Monday, Joe.
Did you want to do the F-Gen?
We can do that. Give me a few moments here. I stopped sharing for the moment. And we will go to the F-Gen and show you some pretty significant, and pretty amazing stuff. Let's again share the screen here. Hopefully I won't lose any of this.
Oh, hold on. You disappeared again.
Oh.
Just a second. Let me bring it. Oh, there, you're back. You're fine. Go ahead.
All right. So this is the GFS. This is the 18Z run. In fact, let me just switch over to the 12Z, which I'm a little bit more confident about. And we'll show you that F-Gen. Again, this is the area of atmospheric energy. And right now, as of 0Z Monday or 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday evening, there's that area. Remember, we were looking down in the Carolinas and we saw that band of rather heavy rainfall and also areas where there was some flashes or some embedded thunderstorm activity. That is associated with this. Wherever you see these red contour lines jammed together like this, that is atmospheric energy associated with the storm that we're watching for the next 6 to 12 hours. Here is the F-Gen for 6Z Monday. This is 1 a.m. tonight, 1 a.m. Monday morning. And as you can see, that area of energy is just knocking at our side door, coming up again from the south, reaching into the New York metropolitan area, covering a good swath of central New Jersey. And here in the lower Hudson Valley where I am, we're not there yet, but this is what I'm talking about, Joe. This is what I'm talking about in terms of rapid speed. Forward speed is immense. This is what we have at 1 a.m. Now let's jump 6 hours.
And by the way, how that translates at the surface is the fact that you're going to get these strong wind gusts because unlike last week with that frontal boundary where a lot of areas had trouble, especially away from the coast, of mixing down the strong air aloft. That's not going to be the case here. We're going to see these strong winds in the upper atmosphere mix down. And when Joe's done, I got the wind gust map ready to go, so we could take a look at some specific wind gusts that are being forecast. But this is very impressive.
It is. This is 1 a.m. Now, you would say to yourself, okay, if that's 1 o'clock in the morning, where will it be at 7 a.m.? Maybe it'll be just to the north of Hudson Valley somewhere if it's moving at a normal rate of speed of, let's say, 20 miles an hour or so, chugging along. Well, take a look where the F-Gen, where the Omega, the atmospheric energy is after 1 o'clock in the morning at 7 a.m., 6 hours later. Wham! It is moved all the way up to just past Albany and into central New England. So it's gone from here to here in a matter of 6 hours. So this is literally going to plow right on through our area in the after midnight or pre-dawn hours of Monday morning. And that's why that rapid speed will produce probably some very strong wind gusts in excess, even inland, of 30, 40, 50 miles an hour. Places right along the coast may very well see 50 or 60 mile per hour wind gusts from this. And along with that, very strong, very heavy rainfall. And again, the likelihood, not the possibility, but I'd say the likelihood that before this night is over, you're going to hear at least one or two claps of thunder, if not more. And that convection is going to lead probably to some very localized heavy precipitation. Now, normally, I would say what? 2 inches, 2.5 inches of rain. You get convection to mix in, as we saw all this summer. All during the summer, if you remember when we looked at the WPC quantitative precipitation maps, Joe and I would say, all right, well, it's summertime, it's warm. I had a little convection. You probably could double what they have pictured there. So it would not be surprising if, when this is all over, said and done, there would be places within a 75-mile radius of New York City that picked up 4.5, 5 inches or more of rain.
Well, we
That
did
is
it. We
not.
did it last week.
We did it last week, not here in the lower Hudson Valley. Of course, that was Long Island's problem. But
And
this week,
Connecticut.
it could happen again.
Yep,
It could very well happen
could very
again.
well. All right, let's look at some wind gusts, shall we?
Surely.
All right, so let's do that. And I've got this is off of Pivotal Weather, and the map that's on the screen, or will be on the screen shortly, is from 2 hours from now. And on the lower right, we have Vineland, New Jersey, with 46-mile-an-hour wind gusts. I'm doing this off the GFS. But I can take you. We'll look at the other models too. I also probably should look at the short-range models as well. 46 at Vineland, 51 gust at Dover, 37 at Toms River. New York City gusting to 39, 37 at Yonkers. Islip gusting to 43. It's mostly gusting 30 miles an hour or higher, even in inland areas in Connecticut, in the Hudson Valley, down through interior New Jersey, except the Northwest, where it's all under 10 miles an hour there. That's at 10 o'clock. Now at 1 a.m., this yellow area punches up the coast, and this gives Toms River a gust to 65, Long Branch at 58, Brentwood at 46. You've gusting into the 40s around New York City, Trenton down to Philadelphia, almost to 40 at Norwich in Connecticut and southeast Connecticut, Providence at 41, Barnstable on the Cape at 49, and Boston at 39. And if you want to work your way up further inland around Poughkeepsie, for example, a gust to 30. That's at 1 a.m. At 4 a.m., now this is where it looks like the peak is in terms of the winds. We're talking on the GFS now, 60 to 70 mile an hour winds in the yellow and brown. A 75 mile an hour wind gust these are forecast gusts. This is not reality yet. We'll see how it plays out to reality. 75 at Long Branch, 62 Toms River, 71 at Brentwood, 66 at Bridgeport, 53 in Providence, up to 46 in Boston. At 7 a.m. Now you start to see the wind line sort of shift eastward here. So it's eastern Long Island at 50 to 60. Most of Connecticut, except the western part, running gusting up 50 to 60 miles an hour or more, and gusting into the middle and upper 60s in Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts. At 10 a.m., a little bit further east now, but still gusting over 50 on the east end of Long Island and in southeast New England. But the New York City winds have dropped down into the 20s, but then they pick up in western New Jersey and in eastern Pennsylvania, where they're gusting back into the 30s there, and then 30 to 40 mile an hour wind gusts on the backside begin to spread eastward. So the worst of it is going to be overnight into tomorrow morning, at the beginning of the morning commute, certainly. And of course, the further east you are, the longer those winds are going to last. So that's the GFS for you. I'll quickly do. Let's jump to. You know what? Let's do the HRRR, and I'll take the. It may not. The 0Z is coming out now because that takes us out beyond 18 hours in a forecast, but I don't have enough of it yet. Oh, maybe I do. Hold on a second. No, I don't. So we're going to go to let's go to 23Z. So that's at 6 o'clock to start. So we'll just roll it along. At 10 o'clock, now see the GFS already had 50 mile an hour wind gusts down at the South Jersey by 10 o'clock. The HRRR is a little slower at 35 and Dover at 38. Then at 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m. Now you've got 45-mile-an-hour wind gusts over central and eastern Long Island and in much of southern Connecticut. Low 40s in New York City, Toms River at 46, Trenton at 50, Philadelphia at 52, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. So this is the HRRR matching up with the GFS time wise. They're a little bit lower, but still impressive. 61 in Brentwood, 56 gust in New York City, Long Branch 54, Toms River at 58, drops down in Trenton and Philadelphia. Uh, and by the way, if there is convection in all of this, if there are thunderstorms in here, that's going to play a role in some of these wind gusts. And at 5 a.m., the HRRR has gusts of 62 in New York City, 64 in Brentwood, 45 at Bridgeport, Norwich at 59. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 61 in New York City, 70 mile an hour winds gusting at Brentwood, 51 in Long Branch and Toms River. Again, further north and west you go, the numbers do come down. The further east you go, the numbers go up, particularly along the coast. And again, the big question is the direction for the coastal areas for Long Island, for the coastal areas of Connecticut, Rhode Island, even back down into southwest Connecticut, Westchester County, with that south wind piling the water into the shoreline there, and
I
also
should
along
point
the
out,
South Shore.
I don't mean to interrupt or anything,
Good.
but I should point out that the important thing to note here is these are 10-meter winds. These are winds that are not at ground level, but these are slightly elevated winds. So we're talking about winds, let's say at 30 or 40 feet above your head. Um, I mean, I know that the winds are going to be certainly very significant down at the ground, but they do go they do get noticeably stronger as you go higher up into the atmosphere. We don't have let's say a 1 meter wind
Right.
gust, but this we just want to give you an idea of what you're going to be up against. I, I certainly around my house I have trees that are as high as 50 to 70 feet, so that certainly is more than likely within the range of 10-meter forecast zone. But again, this is just to give you an idea of what you can expect with stronger wind gusts. I think the frightening thing about this, Joe, is it's going to happen when most of us are abed and most of us are in the dark. I've heard many times of people who have experienced tornadoes in the dark at night, and they say it's one of the most frightening things they've ever experienced in their entire lives. And maybe right below that on the list is experiencing a 40 or 50 mile an hour wind gust or gusts in total darkness. And if you lose your power, it becomes even more frightening.
By the way, I did remember the thing I was going to say at the beginning of the show. We were talking about coastal flooding, that there was the upside, and then I forgot what I was going to say. Was the fact that fortunately we are in between full new moon, full moon.
Right.
So we're in a low tide cycle from that perspective. So the coastal flooding issues would be far worse if this were coming around a full moon or a new moon. So at least we have that. Now I've got the NAM winds are, one of the things with the NAM is it's got a sharper back edge, so that if you're well inland in western New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania, the winds drop off rather quickly during the overnight. This is at 4 a.m., but they also go off the deep end on the east side, where the NAM is generating 70 mile an hour winds at Toms River, 79 mile an hour gust at Long Branch, 65 in New York City, 73 at Brentwood, and every bit of 40 to 55 across southeastern and southern New England. Uh, that's at 4 a.m. At 5 a.m., still going at 60 mile an hour wind gusts or higher uh, around New York City, Long Island, coastal New Jersey, much of central and eastern Connecticut, southeastern New England. 70 mile an hour winds at Providence, 71 at Barnstable. Look at this, Joe. At 10 a.m., Barnstable, 81 miles an hour, and still 55 at Brentwood, 46 in New York City, 49 at Yonkers. And then it's picking up again on the west side with the behind the low, because the gradient on the NAM is very tight, which is why it's doing 30 to 40 mile an hour winds all on the backside
Right.
during Monday afternoon. Now, that remains to be seen whether how that part of it plays out. We got to get through this first part, which is pretty impressive. I could probably go on with other models, but I think everybody gets the idea of uh, of where this is at. Now, WPC's rainfall forecast. Uh, it has tailed off. Obviously, it's tailing off from South Carolina southward. The additional rainfall in the eastern half of North Carolina will be anything from a half an inch to an inch and a half. In fact, this is effective as of 10 minutes ago, who knows? Some places may have already gotten that. And then you've got a fairly large area of 2 to 3 inches for the Delmarva Peninsula, easternmost Maryland, just about all of New Jersey, and easternmost Pennsylvania, the lower and middle, and even parts of the upper Hudson Valley, into Connecticut, western Mass. Inch and a half to 2.5 inches is sort of surrounding all of that, Long Island in that zone. But we'll let the radar make the decision as far as where that's going to go. But you can see how impressive that is. Also, want to point out that the rain was very much very important for the southeast. It's been under a lot of these areas in the southeast uh, had drought conditions. The last 2 weekends with rainfalls that have been significant have really alleviated that drought to a large degree. Still could do some work though across the Gulf states, but they're going to get some down the road from Louisiana northwestward into Oklahoma, where we see a large area of inch and a half to 2.5 inch rains, and much of the much of the state of California over the next 7 days. Several inches from north to south, from the northwest corner all the way down to San Diego, forecasting 2.5 inches or more of rain, and a narrow area of heavy snow possible in the Sierra Nevadas. Now, speaking of snow, so we could take a look at that. We've got WPC's the probability for two, and as we mentioned, it's all pretty much in the mountains and in the lake effect areas on the backside, and that will begin tomorrow in West Virginia in particular. There's an area there where we've got 90 to 100% probability for at least two, and the 5% line goes all the way down into North Carolina. Also, northeastern Ohio, northwest PA, southwest New York, with some lake effect going on there. In the lower peninsula, the western part of Michigan, and also the upper peninsula of Michigan, they're going to be dealing, excuse me, with some lake effect as well. And as far as snow amounts, now, please don't tell me they're going to Yeah, the map's going to update. I had it preset to snow amounts, and I wanted to use it because we just haven't had to use it very much this month. Not just here, but just about it. Not just for eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England, but for about anywhere. But let's take a look at total snowfalls from this. And by the way, because a few, every time we get storms like this in the winter months where there's a whole lot of rain and not a whole lot of snow, there's that natural tendency for most people to say, "Oh, we just got we're getting 3 and 4 inches of rain." Can you imagine if that was all? If there was cold air, we would have gotten 30 to 40 inches of snow. And
No,
I just want to point out, it never works out that way. That's just not how the atmosphere works. I mean, even if there were plenty of cold air, first of all, if there was plenty of cold air, you'd have a totally different track, so all the heavy rain would be falling in the ocean. And second of all, usually on the northwest side, whatever precip that a storm is producing, you could probably cut the liquid amounts in half. I
right.
mean, yeah, in some of the big ones we've had, sure, we've generated 2 to 3 inches of liquid equivalent, but if you look on the rain side, those storms probably generated double that on the east side. So it's not a fair comparison to say that. The reality is there is no cold air, so we really nobody's getting 2 feet of snow out of this. So we
But
don't.
the one thing that we haven't touched upon with all of this, we touched about the rain and the wind. We haven't touched upon the temperatures. The temperatures, Joe, are going to be climbing through the overnight. And in fact, by tomorrow morning, the temperature around daybreak in some areas of the tri state region are going to be flirting with 60 degrees. 60 degrees. The normal high at this time of the year is only around 40. We're going to be about 20 degrees above normal. And that, as you just mentioned, one of the reasons why we will be looking at so much rainfall is that warmer air has a capacity of holding a lot more in terms of moisture and in terms of turning out rainfall and precipitation than colder air. And you're right. If it were cold, let's say at or below freezing, there's no way the air could not hold all this moisture that we have now with these warming temperatures. And you're right. It probably would be, instead of us talking about 2 to 3 inches of rain, we'd probably only be talking about an inch or an inch and a half. So instead of talking about, the potential of 30 or 40 inches, yeah, it would be a significant, no question, be a substantial snowfall, but it would be not 30 or 40 inches of snow. It'd be more like 10 or 15 inches because the colder air just simply cannot hold all of the moisture that we're seeing now with this exceptionally mild air mass. 60 degrees or 50s to near 60 tomorrow morning, probably in the 50s during the course of at least the first half of the day tomorrow. Once the upper trough with this particular storm system, once the storm itself lifts out and away to the northeast and the winds turn into the west and northwest, colder air will begin funneling in later tomorrow. It will be tomorrow night, not in the 50s or 60s. It's going to be in the 30s tomorrow night. And in contrast, Tuesday, we'll probably have a tough time getting out of the 30s, maybe only near 40. And in fact, aloft especially, it'll be cold enough so that whatever lingering precipitation we have on Tuesday may fall in the form of wet snow. No accumulation.
Yeah, I kind of thought with the upper trough coming through on Tuesday that there probably will be some snow showers around.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It will turn cold. But again, we haven't touched upon the temperatures. I mean, you go outside, later tonight, if I have to walk the dog in the rain, one thing I will not need is to bundle up. It will be a rather balmy night tonight and into the first half of the day tomorrow with those temperatures again well above normal.
Two people hitting the tip jar tonight. Thank you to Leon Probitsky, who banged the tip jar just moments ago. Really, really do appreciate it, Leon. And not on my watch. I saw you hit it earlier. I meant to say thank you earlier, but I got caught up in the weather stuff. I may have missed the episode. I don't know. You did not miss it. You got on early enough. We were just at the very beginning. He wants to know, did you get your Christmas lights up, Joe?
Yes, I did. We had
Only
we
to
took
take
full
them
advantage.
down.
I mean, we took full advantage of last weekend where we had a very nice Saturday and it was very mild. And Friday and yesterday we were able to put up more lights, so we're pretty well filled in now. Now the question is, will we have power to light the lights after later tonight? And those reindeer on my front lawn, will they be flying reindeer with those gusty, strong winds later tonight and tomorrow morning?
Well, I got the snow map up, and it's mostly a coating to a couple of inches, but there is an exception, and that's where they've got the winter storm warnings in that, in that dark blue area that you see on the map here. So I'll just kind of outline it here for you. Down into the mountains of West Virginia and going back into the mountains of southwestern Pennsylvania, where we've got an area of about 3 to 6. And I don't know, this must be a mountaintop, Joe, in West Virginia, that they got a 10 there. So I'm guessing that that's what that is. And also, there's some slightly darker blues in the mountains of western North Carolina and the Blue Ridge Mountains, going down further southwest, kind of nosing into where they start out in northeast Georgia, with a coating to an inch or so. I'm just outside that coating to an inch. Although I think I might see some snow showers tomorrow and tomorrow night, but we'll see. Also around the lakefront, it looks like a band of 4 to 6 there from just south of from Buffalo to Cleveland. Also southeast of Lake Michigan into northwest Indiana and southwestern Michigan, where we've got a band of about 3 to 6 there. And looking up in the upper peninsula, not a whole lot. There's some darker bands of 6 inches plus just inland. But again, this is really small potatoes compared to what you could see from time to time in the month of December, particularly now that we're in the middle of the month and getting closer and closer to Christmas. Jason Kaplan, thank you for hitting Super Chat. Really appreciate it. And you hope the pattern changes by January. Well, we'll see how it goes. Keep getting hints of it. We'll have to wait for it to follow through, but we'll talk more about that in a bit. So actually, I could talk about it now, just since I have
Yeah.
the map up.
Before we do that, Joe, let's quickly throw me back on with the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. which encompasses Christmas. This is for December 23rd
Gee,
through
I
December
wonder
20th.
what it's going to say.
Yeah.
I just
I,
wonder. Oh, well, yes, of course. Go on.
oh,
You're
oh
on.
God. I mean, look at this, folks. Are you dreaming of a white Christmas? Forget it. Forget it. Not with this. In this area, this dark shade of red here, this is 80 to 90% probability of above normal temperatures, probability of above normal. And the New York metropolitan area is right on the fence between 70 to 80 and 60 to 70. So we're basically right here. We are in the zone of about 60 to 80% probability of above normal. Anything that we get in terms of precipitation in the days in and around Christmas are in all likelihood going to be wet, not white. And this might be one of the rare occasions where places like Minneapolis, Milwaukee, even places in the Dakotas, Bismarck, you may not have a white Christmas this year, not with this type of scenario. And if it does turn cold, and again, we've been getting hints of that, and we'll see that with Joe in just a moment. If it does turn cold, it's not going to happen until after the Christmas holidays over. Please let this pattern hold, at least, and give me a chance to take down the Christmas decorations. I've been able to get them up with reasonably mild temperatures. The last thing I want to do now is have it turn frigidly cold and have to take everything down and put everything away. But right now, this is what it looks like on the 6 to 10 day. And if you say to yourself, well, maybe it'll get a little bit better if you like cold weather for the 8 to 14. No, I don't think so. 8 to 14 day. This takes us all the way to New Year's Eve, and it still shows a majority of the country above normal. Ouch.
Yes. Adam Lowe, just to correct something, he said on November the 1st, people said the pattern changed mid-November, then it was the end, then early December. We haven't been in this pattern since November, so you know we November was what was mostly below normal temperatures in the north in at least in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. I don't know about surrounding areas, but I imagine that a fairly large portion of the northeast and northern mid-Atlantic states was below average during the month of November. So we didn't really need to see that pattern change. It just never held, uh, which you know doesn't help the cause, I guess. But look, it changes when it changes. I don't know when it's going to change. I don't think anybody really does. You can only help, you look at the models and try to figure, try to see if you can guess it right. But there are clues. Again, it all matters whether any of this couples or not. And the one thing I'm noticing on the looking at the stratosphere, uh, way up there at 30,000 plus feet, uh, the polar vortex has been really going well. At least it's being forecast to sort of rotate around and line up east-west across northern Europe and Siberia as we go through this coming week and into uh, Christmas. But then after that, there looks like I saw a few people that write about this stuff talking about a big stratospheric warming event, and it kind of shows up today on the 10 millibar, and you see the polar vortex actually starts to rotate around more toward pointing toward northern Greenland and starting to push a trough back down into eastern Canada. We got to get rid of that part of this whole thing in terms of what the upper air pattern is. We've had this trough that's been so stubborn, from Alaska down to the west coast. It's not quite the same as it was last year because we're not really getting up until recently. We haven't been getting that the smashing moisture going into California. It's been going more into the Pacific Northwest. And being that it's an El Nino year, it should be going into California. Well, that's going to start to change over the next 7 days. And I'm just sort of looking at all of this going ahead for this week. Obviously this week nothing's happening, and we can go through Christmas and nothing's really happening. We're actually in a ridge position early next week. You still got that with the Alaska trough, cold air just gets cut off. Now the models are sort of, can get, and it's starting to push closer to the 10-day time frame where it starts. Uh, at least from this standpoint on this run, the upper air pattern does change rather significantly once we get past Christmas. It's getting close to being where it's on the edge of the 10-day time frame that I like to see it inside at least 10 days. So we're finally seeing at least progress there. Now, I can look at this tomorrow and it could just have that trough back, back in Alaska again, down to the west coast. But I mentioned last week that I was I phrased it as being cautiously uh, encouraged by some of the signs on the long range. So I'm going to maintain that caution. You still have what appears to be a very active subtropical jet. It started, it gets more blocky looking. There's actually a little bit of a connection out of Canada, which has been sorely lacking as we get toward the end of the month. But the other side of this, Joe, and this is something that I've been also looking at. If you look at the northern hemisphere, so basically you're looking at it's almost as if you're looking at this from the top. I'm going to put the 2 meter temperature anomaly on this. Now, this is the first time today, where I'm actually finally seeing areas of below normal temperatures showing up in Canada. Because if I roll this back, you're going to see where there's nothing. I mean, here we are. Let me see what the date is on this one. So this is at the end of this coming week. This is Friday. And if you look up in Canada, except for southeastern Canada, just about everywhere else in Canada, and then you could lay an exception to the Northwest, is all above normal. And then, of course, you have this whole area of the United States, except for the immediate East Coast, is all above normal. And that's Friday. Now, we go through the weekend. We go into next week. Look at Central and Eastern Canada, all above normal. Uh, Parts of the Arctic, all above normal. Now we're moving into Christmas week. You finally are starting to see, little bubbles of colder air developing across northern Canada. Now we need a mechanism to sort of, clean house and push some of that down if you want cold air to come in. The other thing I think that is a little bit encouraging too is if the models are correct, you always want to you want to see a trough in the Pacific. You want to see a trough form out at 160, right about there, down to from the Aleutians to Hawaii, because when that happens, that's going to result in a trough, in the east somewhere, 80 or 85, and then ridging up in the west coast, and you're seeing signs of this happening as we come to the end of the calendar year and start 2024. Look, the only thing we can really do is look at this from day to day and just kind of go with the flow. If it changes, it changes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know exactly when it's going to change and when it's not, or if it's not going to change. But you got to think at some point it's going to change, Joe. But and you want to see more than just little pieces of evidence. You want to actually see it happen. And I'll just finish this off by saying uh, that pattern change is not an event. It's not a flip a switch thing. It's a process. Very rarely do you get pattern changes that happen very quickly. It just takes a long time for the atmosphere to move the chess pieces around. And there's no guarantee, by the way, that we go from what we have now to is something that's more favorable for cold and snow. You could have a pattern that's completely unfavorable for snow like we have now, which, by the way, is a different pattern from what we had last year, which was completely unfavorable for snow in the east. So my point is that you could go from one unfavorable pattern to another unfavorable pattern. So you just you have to wait to see how it plays out. I don't know how it's going to do it, but you know that's the fun in all of this, in my view.
Well, I think we've just about gone through every possible conceivable angle here in the past hour. The one thing that bothers me is that after this is all over, should we have significant flooding or should we have power outages and all kinds of mayhem, that somebody is going to say, well, I knew we were going to have bad. Well, they didn't tell me it was going to be this bad. Well, folks, let me assure you, Joe and I are telling you right now, it's going to be bad. And prepare for the worst and hope for the best. That's all I can
Well,
say.
I'm also the new thing now. Well, let me run through the GFS and I could tell you the new thing. By the way, Ken Musillo, thank you for hitting the tip jar. Really appreciate it. 177 likes. Thank you for those of you who've hit the like button. So now we're in range of getting to 200, which would be really nice. So if you like the show and you haven't hit the like button, here is your opportunity. And we've had a nice size audience watching tonight, which is always nice to see. And we welcome those of you who are new to the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Sunday through Thursday, we're on 7:35 p.m. and the occasional stormy Friday and Saturday. So here's our low. It moves up almost straight north, up the coast, straddles the whole coastline, goes up into northeastern New York, northwestern Vermont, on into eastern Canada. You get cold air behind it with the upper trough, and that's why you see the snow there. Once that pulls out, the funny thing is, Joe, this I think is going to be the third week in a row where we've had a system on a weekend, or might even be the fourth weekend in a row, but certainly the third, where you're going to have a big, a relatively a big system on a weekend, and then the whole week is just quiet, and that's
Right,
how it's going to play. Uh,
right,
there,
right,
there's really nothing. There's sort of a warm front late on Friday that the GFS shows, but it's nothing really to write home about. I wouldn't count that. And then there's some kind of low that comes out of New Mexico and Texas and runs northeastward toward Minnesota and the Western Lakes come Christmas Day. Before you get a more important, that weakens out, and then you get a new low that forms in Louisiana and drives up west side of the Appalachians that brings rain on Tuesday the 26th. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of weird how that's been the case. It's not only been raining on the weekends, but the events have been sizable, and then we get these whole 5, 6 day stretches where nothing happens.
right. And as I said at the top of the show, at least it's going to coincide with a period where a lot of things are going to be happening for a lot of people. A lot of people will be rushing out, making last minute shopping decisions. They'll be traveling to places to be at the be at during the holiday weekend. Last thing you want is a system like this to come caving in on you just as the holiday is arriving. That'll all be behind us. We've got a long stretch, a protracted spell of at least 4, 5, 6 days of dry, fine, tranquil weather. But again, you have to get through this atmospheric hemorrhage tonight and tomorrow before you get the nice stuff coming our way for the rest of the week.
Can you unshare and share again, or share and unshare again? Because I lost you.
Oh, okay. So you want me to let me share.
Share something. Let's see if I can get you back on the screen, so I can get both of us back on the screen. Okay, that's good. I got you back on the screen. Now unshare.
Okay. Stopping the share.
And you're back on the screen. No, I
Ta-da!
was going to say the other thing that has shown up in the last few days that has me particularly annoyed. I've been getting it on Facebook is talking about this storm system that we're getting now. A number of people, their response to was to putting up comments along the lines of,
That's
yeah,
the
it's
200.
200.
That's the 200 bell,
Yes.
ladies and gentlemen. We're
Uh,
up to 208 right now. Likes. Thank you so much.
Anyway, just was what I was saying was there are a number of people that were posting comments along the lines of it's rain, who cares? Okay, and why are you posting about rain? Who cares? And I have two responses to that, and one is, first of all, the world does not revolve just around you or your zip code. Okay, there are other people who care about this sort of stuff, particularly people in a situation like today who live near the coast, who have to deal with strong winds and coastal flooding. There's the big heavy rain issue. Okay, tomorrow is Monday morning. It's a morning commute, et cetera, et cetera. So this is coming at a very, it's not coming at a good time. Not that there's really a good time for it, but my point is that if you find something that doesn't. It's not. Obviously, if you're saying that you don't care about this, okay, that's perfectly fine. You don't care about it. Then just scroll by the post. I don't care about your opinion. I don't care. If you think why do you think that your opinion matters to me? It doesn't. All right, from that respect. If you don't want to read about the fact that there's going to be a big coastal storm with rain, that's good. I'm okay with that. But I don't need you telling me that you don't care. It I don't know what you expect me to say. Just scroll by. All right? If you don't like something, scroll to the next post. Okay? Go annoy somebody else.
I'm looking straight at you now,
Yes.
and I'd like to
Oh,
just,
I have to do it. Hold on. I have to turn
as they
opposite. So okay, I'm looking straight at you.
as Hal on Space Odyssey said, why don't you sit down, take a stress pill, and just calm out, so to speak.
But doesn't it bug you? Doesn't it bug you to an extent? It's your page. It's your platform. You write about what you want, okay? And it just bugs me that people think that coming back and telling me that they don't give a crap about what you're writing about. All right, you don't give a crap. It's not relevant to you. I certainly don't do that when I'm reading other people's, all kinds of other posts that I'm looking at. If I find something, if it interests me, I might leave a comment. But if it's something that doesn't interest me or it's not relevant to me, I would just go to the next post. So, and I've told people that if it, go to the next post. I don't, I just don't care. That's me. I do care about, by the way, what Christinapedia has just informed us is that we've hit 14,000 subscribers to the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast.
There you go.
Thank you, Christinapedia.
And
That I do care about.
it makes us feel relevant when the TV industry looked at the two of us and said, "We don't need you guys. You're too old. Go. Thank you and goodbye." And yet we come here and we see that during active periods of weather, impending major storms, so many of you come running to this site because you know that you can only get the best weather information about the impending
Well, clearly.
coming our way right here at Joe and Joe. So we thank all of you for coming. Yeah, I think I'm going to take a chill pill right
Oh,
now.
by the way, that was another thing. I happened.
Here we go again.
Yes, I happened to, for the first time in a long time, I happened to pass by the channels that, allegedly do weather, and I was told by one of the anchors that talking about the weather up in the eastern in our area that we talk about a lot, which is eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England, that it might if I have a lot of holiday gifts and I'm traveling and I have so many holiday gifts that I have to fill up a car and then attach that car to my car and drive it like a trailer, and if I, and going south into the rain and wind, that it might not be a good idea to do it.
Yes.
I mean, it was just like
Figured
it
that out,
was.
right?
I mean, coming up with all these really sort of cliched lines about how, you know, if you're heading out to the shopping mall tomorrow, you're going to be dealing, you're going to, potentially be blowing away. Your gifts are going to be blowing away. It's like, come on, will you just stop? I mean, really, I hear stuff like that. I cringe. My eyes roll. Better grab that sweater because there's going to be a chill in the air. Oh, good God. Pull out that sweater that's been in your closet for 20 years that's gone in and out of style twice.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that bothered me. A lot of things bothered me when I was doing television, but they used to say it was the clothes, outlook. Like you're supposed to tell people what they're supposed to be putting on their way to school or on their way to work or whatever, as if I'm talking about temperatures, let's say 25 degrees out there with a wind chill near zero. and I'm supposed to tell you that you certainly should bundle up. I'm supposed to waste 10 seconds of my
Right,
weathercast.
to tell you to go wear a coat when it's cold.
Exactly.
I mean, come
Exactly.
on. I tell you something. I never did that. I don't think I ever said once in all the time I was on the air, uh, did I ever, uh, did I ever, as filler, tell people to put, wear this, take that, take the umbrella, okay, put on the boots, grab that coat, put on that sunscreen. Just leave me alone with that sort of stuff. It makes me cringe. It just
Yeah.
makes me cringe as an on-air person because it's probably the most uncreative thing that you could say. Where you could have taken that 10 seconds and done something creative with it, and instead you go down that particular road. I don't know.
On that happy note, ladies and gentlemen,
Do you have a Briller Jeopardy or do I don't think I do. Do you have one?
I have to check. I was kind of hoping we would just cut it because we've gone over an hour and 10 minutes
Oh, we could do
already.
that. No, no, you're right. It has been a long day, and I imagine I'll probably be up early tomorrow. So, by the way, for those of you, probably most of you know, but some of you may not. I mean, there's other videos that are up that I put up earlier today. I try to keep things updated. I do a couple of short weather videos on most days. There's weather in a minute. There's weather in 5. Both today served really as major storm updates on what was going on as a prelude to what we did tonight. And I guess we did okay because we got 222 likes, which is really nice. And really thank you very much for that. We do appreciate it. We have had a nice size audience tonight too. And Joe, you've got the tip jar hitters.
We do. We have Not on My Watch, Leon Probitsky, Jason Kaplan, and Ken Musillo. Thank you for hitting the tip jar on this very active Sunday night.
Yes. So we will see you, everybody. Thank you, Angela Chung. Thank you. And she says, "Clown World." Yeah, that's kind of what it is. When you look at TV right now with TV weather, it's pretty much Clown World in my view. Um, but I got my Giants sweatshirt on. I know they lost today, but you know what? I keep my house at 64, so it keeps me nice and it keeps me warm. So it's useful. It's useful.